Welcome to another episode of Just Joshing, a DC Hoop show. On today's show, I have a guest who also is like me. He covers the Mystics and the Wizards, so we're going to talk about both today. Jared, say what's up to the people.
What's up, people? Thank you for having me on, Josh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Uh, let's get right into it because we gonna talk about two teams today. So it's a lot on the agenda, but I want to start with the Mystics. They're the team that's in season. I mean, it's still the preseason. Today's episode is being recorded right before their second preseason game. So this will go out after that. But they did play one preseason game already. They lost to the Lynx. Um, we were both there on draft night. Not we weren't at the draft, but we were at the Mystics, like essentially headquarters where Sidney Johnson and the whole gang were kind of making their picks in a separate room, and the media was in another room. And then we talked to Sidney that night, right after they drafted Lauren and all the draft class. But what's your impression just been of the squad so far? Obviously, we haven't started the real season yet, but just from what you've seen.
From what I've seen so far, I think they look good. I think that we still have to see the full roster because we haven't seen Shakira and Kiki play with them yet. Um, Barring Kiki does play today. Shakira is still resting from her overseas commitment and unrivaled, so she's been playing a lot of basketball this offseason.
Right.
So we still have a lot to see with them, but so far they did look really good, especially in the first half of the game against the Lynx. Um, I do feel like Lauren Betts, she's definitely going to be a focal point on the offense when she gets into the game. You know, being 6'7", being essentially she's probably going to be like the tallest woman on the court every time she steps out there. So I feel like you have to kind of feed her the ball. You have to basically make her the focal point of the offense. And she's a really good passer. I don't think she gets a lot of credit for that, especially from the high post. Like I really feel like she's a really good high-low passer.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Probably one of the funniest moments in my career so far was when I was tweeting from the Sydney press conference I mentioned earlier, right after they drafted Lauren and the rest of the draft class. He mentioned that Lauren might back up Shakira to start the season at the five. And fans were just freaking out. Like, why would you draft a lottery pick to come off the bench? Blah blah blah. Like, that's crazy. This guy's crazy. Like, it's like she's already better than Shakira. It's like, all right, Lauren is someone who could be a Hall of Famer, but let's like develop, and that's all it is. Like, it's just like Shakira is also like really good. They're very different players. Shakira's a little more offense based. Lauren's more of like I think like a classic big where she's really a really strong presence on both ends, but she doesn't have like she doesn't like stretch out for three or anything. Like it's just more of like a classic big. Um, but with like passing skill, like you said, she can definitely develop. But again, it's just like this Mystics team is similar to the Wizards in the respect that they're methodical with the development, but I do think the Mystics, could actually have like an outside shot at the playoffs in year two, which is the main difference. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if everything falls right and they stay healthy, I feel like they can definitely compete for probably one of the lower seeds, if not one of the
Cool.
maybe top mm, anywhere from 8 to like
Yeah.
5. I
Yeah.
feel like they can compete to it because I feel like I know one of the big things about them is will they be able to shoot the ball from deep. That's one of the biggest concerns. I do feel like with the type of scoring that they do have, it can kind of compensate for the three ball. But also, they still have some decent shooters. You know, Georgia is a good shooter. Sonia's a great shooter. She shot like 42% from three last year. And then we don't know if Kiki and Shakira is going to be able to shoot more, stretch the floor, be able to hit threes, but probably. Cody McMahon has a decent jumper. Her percentages have been up and down throughout her college career, but I do feel like she can develop into a good shooter. And then, defensively, I feel like they can be catch a lot of teams off guard with their size because Sidney Johnson told us during the press conference that they drafted for size to match up defensively with all these teams to be able to not get bullied inside and be able to hold their own. So I feel like that's going to be a big factor in their identity. With Lauren down there, like me personally, I would like to see them throw a lineup sometimes of Lauren, Kiki, and Shakira together. Shakira probably playing the three because she's more mobile than Kiki and Lauren, and you just go from there and see how it works. It could be in spurts, you know.
Yeah.
I would like to see it during the preseason just to test it out to see how it is. But you know, Shakira's still resting and everything. Kiki's coming back today, like I said. So maybe in the last preseason game, we can probably get one crack at it. So if we were to predict how the season will go, I would say they got a puncher's chance at making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think for Kiki, Lauren, and Kira to all play at the same time, it would have to be like a specialized lineup, like kind of like Biggs lineup, like because I don't think you could have it as your base because it's just a little too much.
Yeah,
There's just not enough like shooting and agility there. Um, but it could definitely work, especially if you're looking for a length for like certain stretches of the game. That could be really effective for like a few minutes here and there. So that's the thing that gives them flexibility with the lineups, which is, a really good asset. Um, but yeah, I mean, I asked Sydney when I went to their very first practice on a training camp. It was before media day. And I asked him like, because he said during his draft press conference, like, yeah, we're not the aces, but we're ascending, and I was like, okay, so do you mean ascending like record wise, or what do you mean? Basically. And he was like, I don't want to put a win total on it, but we're getting better, so it's kind of the vibes that like we're still in a developmental year, they don't want to commit yet to anything. But I just think with just due to the sheer amount of talent, like even if they're not necessarily like gunning for the playoffs, it could just kind of happen, just because you already like Sonya and Kiki were already all stars last season as rookies, which is something unique about the WNBA is the rookies can come in and be all stars nowadays. Um, and then you add Georgia, like you mentioned, Georgia's another piece. It's like she's basic. I mean, she's not a rookie, but she's gonna be playing her first season. But she just had this experience sitting on the sidelines watching the team work for a whole year. So and she looked good in the first preseason game too. And then you got Lauren and this whole draft class, like Cody, someone we haven't even mentioned yet, like is like Angela Dugalich, like Roy Armin. There's a whole bunch of like good rookies they got. So I just think talent wise, like it's pretty good for year two of a rebuild. They obviously went like big heavy and not guard heavy, but maybe they're trying to save that for Juju Watkins or something. Who knows? I don't know. But like it definitely seems like they're going bigs now, guards later in terms of like the rebuild. But what's your read on that?
yeah. Big heavy, wing heavy. I feel like that. I would have thought they would have went for a guard earlier on. I think essentially the only guard that they really picked was Cody McMahon and Roy Harmon, and I'm honestly I'm fine with that. Roy broke the record for assists at Texas for her career, and Cody McMahon, she's a downhill scorer. Like she get to the basket, she can get to the mid range. She's strong, so I feel like you have enough guards to compensate. Don't know if they look at Sonya as a guard or a small forward. I think she's more of a small forward. In the preseason game, she started at the three. Um, but essentially she is a perimeter player. So I do feel like they have enough, how can I put it, versatility to compensate for not having a lot of guards on the roster. Um, Being big heavy could be a plus, could be a minus. You go against some of the teams that have a lot of size, that could be an advantage. But sometimes you may have to go small, and maybe you figure out a way to kind of match the smaller teams where maybe you have to play one of the perimeter players at the four, or you don't want have just one big out there. So it's a lot to it's good problems to have, I could say. It's problems that good teams should have. You have so
Yeah.
much talent that you just have to figure out everything. And when you figure it out, it finally materializes to a championship.
I was gonna say I feel like Cody is a little bit similar to Sonya because she's like officially listed as a forward, but she could definitely play the two, kind of like Sonya. Like Sonya has like the shooting and the agility of like a two as well. But just like as their natural styles, like with their height and everything, and I definitely think they're like probably naturally threes. That's why they're not like pure guards. Whereas Georgia and Rory are like I guess the main pure guards, but it also feels like they definitely feel good about Georgia, if they didn't pick how many guards. Because like you could have picked somebody like Raven Johnson, right? But they didn't. I remember that was kind of like a surprise when we were all watching it. By all the media members were watching the draft there. It was like, oh dang, it's like they passed on. All right, like so. But they must feel good about Georgia. Yeah, you coming off tearing your ACL, but as we saw in the first preseason game, she was she was putting in some work and um, you know, she said in media day she's been full go for a while. I asked Sydney in that practice. He was like, "Yeah, I don't want to like make any bold statements because I didn't think it happened, but she looks really good. So I do think they kind of expect Georgia to be the player she was drafted to be, that number 6 overall last year, even though she was coming off the injury. It's really good to see because otherwise, I just don't think like they would have gone that route because then it's like you got to have some kind of card. But if Georgia wasn't really ready yet, you couldn't have gone that route, with the
Yeah.
draft. So
Maybe I don't know. Maybe they can still go for a guard in free agency. Um, maybe that right before the season start. Depends on what they want to do. Just to have like at least another veteran on there other than Michaela
yeah,
and Shakira. Um, like I feel like because Michaela's more of a wing, Shakira's a wing, a big.
yeah,
So just having like a veteran guard on that team to teach the young guards how the league is, what to see different matchups, how to read the floor. I think that would be essential for the team. But I don't know. I mean, Natasha Cloud is still out there. It's a lot of guards out there, honestly, a lot of free agents. So
that's a whole other conversation to
that's a
talk
whole other
about.
conversation. Yeah. So, but we'll see how the season goes along.
Yeah, no, I mean if they sign Tosh, that would be a movie. That would be crazy. That would be pretty amazing. Yeah, that's she should be signed. She should be signed. But in terms of their moves, I like overall what they're doing. I think a lot of people, including myself, were very, very confused by the firing of Jamila Weinman. That was a really weird way to start the off season, like the weirdest possible way. um, you know, Sydney essentially is like the head of basketball operations in name, but whenever I asked him about that, he was like, he's just his focus is on the collaboration. He's like, yeah, I have my own ideas, but it's between all of us, like he's mentioned Michael Winger, who also is the president of the Wizards and the Mystics, John Thompson, you mentioned Don Wolf, another executive, like a vice president at Monumental. So it's a very unique situation. Like, I think they did well considering in the offseason that they didn't have a chief, but it makes you wonder about the long term direction. I know that it's still early in this process, but how do you feel about that? The team's got a lot of talent, but just like with their overall like upstairs with the front office, like do you feel like you kind of trust the vision, or are you still like I'm not sure yet?
I think and we talked about it plenty of times.
Yeah.
It's confusing because a lot of teams are trying to go the route of having their coach as kind of like the person who's behind the moves with the team as well. It can go good, it can go bad. I just feel like for Sidney Johnson's case, he's only in his second year as a coach, so he's still learning how to be a coach. And to throw this on top of him as well could be a little bit much for him. But like you said, it has been a collaborative effort from all the front office people. So maybe it's not too much on him overall. Um, it is confusing that they decided to fire Jamila right before the off season because I thought she was doing a great job. She orchestrated basically last draft, this draft, and in the draft next year. So she set the Mystics up for success for the future. So to just have her just get, I don't know, fired, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
they agreed to go part ways, whatever the clarification is for it, it was just confusing because you need a GM to be successful and you need to have different people in different roles to be able to succeed and not just throw the, all the work on one person. So
Yeah.
I do think that overall, I mean, they still did very well in the draft. Um, but we do have to see how this season goes in next season. Like if everything works out, they get the top pick. Juju Watkins comes in, then hey, I mean, job well done. Maybe Jamila. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
Jamila did a great job and she set them up. And I don't know. I just it's because it's still unclear to me
Yeah.
why everything happened.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
it's it's really confusing. I mean,
yeah.
um, you know, what they said was it was, a strategic differences, and a lot of
It's
people,
off season.
yeah, a lot of people
Yeah,
were kind of thinking like, oh, is it because like she wanted to play it slow with the development and they wanted to, like win now? And there was a ESPN report about that too, kind of talking about how, um, they the Mystics wanted to kind of get a little bit more like win now players, and like they might have wanted to accelerate the timeline a bit, but that's not what happened at all. Like you mentioned, the only free agent was, I mean, Shakira was just re-signed as a restricted free agent, and then Michaela, who was literally a coach at UCLA just now, and with Lauren and Angela, they signed her, and she's like a vet, and she's like 26.
exactly.
Um, they did not go win now mode at all. I remember Troy Halliburton on his podcast was talking about how he heard it was more of like a interpersonal situation. Like they just they she and Michael and the gang maybe just didn't like work that well together, see eye to eye, whatever the case may be. But regardless, like you said, it's like they can't just expect fans to just like take that in stride. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just make a move like that big without like questions being raised. Um, and they got a lot to prove. Like it's a good start. I think a lot of people like what they're doing. Um, but especially with the whole thing about going light on guards, like that's the biggest question. It's like that's a risk. Like it's good to get size, but you also need balance. So on top of that, it's like, yeah, a lot of Mystics fans are like dreaming about Juju next year, but it's like I don't think the Mystics are gonna tank like the Wizards did. You know what I mean? Even last year covering the team, they lost a lot of their games after the All-Star break. But it wasn't like the Wizards where they just went all out, all the stops, like, sitting half the team and losing 22 or 23 games or whatever the case was, having the absolute worst record in the league. I just don't think this Mystics team is like gonna be bad enough to have like have like the best lottery odds and all that, like what the Wizards got. Uh, so that's where I'm wondering, like, okay, if they're too good for Juju, you know, I mean, there's gonna be other guards for sure, but it's just like, are they eventually gonna sign a free agent guard next year or make a trade, like kind of like a Trey Young trade, like or if Georges is that good and they just get like a couple backups and Georges like just the dog at PG and that's whatever, like that could also work, but you can't bank on that either. Like she still has to prove it coming off the injury, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions there. Like you said, Sydney, you know, again, it's not all on him. Like he's very he emphasizes that it's like a huge collaboration. I asked him like basically, how do you guys make sure that you're all on the same page if like you and Michael and John Thompson, all these people have some different ideas? And he's like, it's like everybody, it's the analytics department, whatever. He's basically trying to say that everyone has a voice and a say, and everyone have, which is good, but um, that could also lead to some disagreement and disorganization too if it gets too hectic. So that's kind of what my question is like I want to see them like be cohesive with that setup because like you said having that responsibility and not having a designated GM it can be pretty challenging. Overall though it's an exciting outlook though like overall like they got a lot of good talent and I definitely anticipate them having like a really fun season for fans to watch.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think a lot of the fans are excited for this season to start. Just to see how the young players play and just to see the progression of the second year players and the younger players, and of course, two veterans we have, just and of course, Sidney Johnson growing as a coach. So I think everybody should be looking forward to this season.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so that's the Mystic side of things. Now, the Wizards, they're not in season anymore, but the draft lottery is just in a few days, and we got some Anthony Davis drama. It's not the first time that AD is, has some funny headlines in his career, but but this is the latest time. Uh, first of all, I just want to start. I like AD. I think like it's not like a situation where he's like out of line or anything. I just think it's like a little awkward.
Yeah,
you know, uh like um you weren't at this but when I was at the Wizards exit interviews when AD came it was kind of like he was kind of being funny like he kind of like he was advertising his show his new prank show which is the same reason he's doing all these interviews now. A lot of people don't know that the context is he's like kind of on his press tour for his show that he,
yeah, it feels like that.
and then they bring up the Wizards like a little bit here and there, and then he'll say like, yeah, I want to see what they do. I want to win now, and it's going to take them some time to win. So, and that's completely understandable. Like he's what 32, 33. But at the same time, um, he is an injury prone player, right? And he has to stay on the court before he can really dictate much, because I just don't know how anyone is gonna give him the contract he wants, right? Because this is the last year of his deal before his player option. And like there that being like a contending team, like he wants to make a lot of money on a contending team, but uh, how are you gonna do that if you can't like stay on the court, right? So nobody's gonna like make that investment. And so he's like kind of doing his best to like say like, hey, I'm being honest, like I like these guys here, but also I want to see some things, but also the Wizards got to see him stay on the court and the NBA
Yeah.
value wise, right? So what do you think about that?
I'm gonna start off with I have never seen Anthony Davis do this many press conferences, interviews, this his entire time in the league.
Yeah,
But it is because his show and also him the big trade to the Wizards. And everybody wants to know if he's going to stay or not.
right.
I don't know if a team will take a chance on him due to not only his injury history but his age as well. He's about what 33 now,
Right.
and he's still incredibly talented. But the thing is, when he's on the court, he's incredibly talented. But it's been always this talk about Anthony Davis has to do this so he can stand in the court. He has to do that. Um, his body needs to hold up, and we all know these things, but it hasn't. And maybe Anthony Davis know these things as well, but for some reason, it just doesn't happen. So will a team take a chance on him, like a contending team that wants to win? Will they take a chance on him to bring him in as a big part of the team, give him the contract he wants? I don't know. To be honest with you, it is a lot to take on
Yeah.
for someone with that baggage, I would say. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know which team would actually really fit well with him because, you know, like any superstar in the league, you got to make some type of adjustments to your roster to accommodate for that star. Anthony Davis is one of those players. Like, like the LeBrons, the Giannis's, the Lucas, those, and it's not a knock on them because they're that good.
Right.
But you'll be essentially giving up a lot, and will the payoff, equal to the reward? I don't know. for Anthony Davis, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So maybe with him and Trey Young here, stay with the Wizards with the young talent, maybe it can get accelerated to a point where they win now because the young guys are really good. Trey Young, we know how good Trey Young is when he's cooking, and him and Anthony Davis. I feel like it's a good situation for him. To be honest with
Yeah.
you,
This is kind of like that. It's a bit of a hot take, but I do feel like he could stick around long term, but there has to be like a lot of stars aligning. Like it basically has to be like first of all, well, we're gonna find out their pick in a few days. If they pick like Bonsa or Peterson, um, or like if they get number five to get like one of the guards, like a Cuffer fundings, AD could fit better long term because they're not picking another big that could replace him. Um, so he could just kind of be with Sar in the front court. So that's the 4 and 5. So that's number one. Number two, obviously, is stay healthy. That's just for anything. Um, because like you said, no contending team is really going to take a chance like that if he just plays 30 games again. Um, and so if he stays healthy, if they pick a non-big in the with this lottery pick, um, and the team, let's say he stays for the whole season next year, he's plays 50, 60 games at least, and they get the eighth or seventh seed, they make the first round, and then they could be like, okay, the season after that in 2020, 2027 or 28 is like, all right, let's like really go for it, that could be an option, and then he's like, all right, well, I'm already here, so let's do that, you know um that could be a scenario, but if they get Boozer or Caleb Wilson, I think it's a little less likely,
yeah,
because then it would be just kind of like the Mystics at that point where you got three and then one of them will probably go eventually. Like in the Mystics case, I think Shakira will go eventually. In this case, it would be kind of like AD. So um, but Will Dawkins said like the train, we're not full gas yet. Like we're like starting to leave the station, but we're not full gas yet. So that's where AD has his reservations. But yeah, I think the most likely scenario, in my opinion, is again, if he plays a decent amount of games, he probably gets dealt by the deadline. Um, just because like it's kind of like rehabbing his value. Like, he needs to stay on the court, and then he probably will get traded to a team that's a little bit further along, um, where it would just be less of a headache for everybody. Um, but yeah, I think that's my first guess, but I do think there is like a world where he could stay.
ideally for me, I think it is a world that he would be able to stay here and try to work with this team. Because I do think with him and Trey Young, like I wouldn't say they're going to win the championship. I definitely think they can make the playoffs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then sneak in and get out the first round with this team.
Right.
As bad as the team was this past season, but that's due to the tanking and you're playing essentially the whole roster just to see everyone on the roster, give them a chance to show what they can do and give them the opportunity to possibly be with the team long term. So when they finally solidified the roster, get the draft pick, got the two stars together, I feel like they can make a nice little run at the season and make the playoffs. And maybe that will convince Anthony Davis, like, okay, we're putting something together. I
Right.
think we can try to win here.
And yeah, I think there's an outside chance a certain situation he can stay, but the other situation with that is the cap space, right? The Wizards already said before the AD trade, like they're gonna have to pick and choose their young guys eventually. They can't keep the whole young core, right? Then you had AD in there. It's like, all right, well, they've already got extensions coming up with like the law. The law's not gonna be a huge extension, but the law. Then the next offseason will be Sar and Key. Uh, you know, they they're not gonna be able to sort of keep everybody. And then if you add a big AD contract onto that, that would make it even harder, right? So, do you anticipate that as something that could like impede the Wizards from even entertaining an 80 extension because they're just so focused on their young core, or do you think they could still consider it under the right circumstances?
Under the right circumstances, maybe, but only if they feel like, for one, where they land in the draft and who they pick in the draft, that would definitely determine it. But also, like you just said, they do have to decide on which players that they want to keep, which players that they want to have to probably let go. That's definitely going to be a factor. But then at the same time, with the players you want to keep, do you feel like they're going to get big extensions? Do you feel like you can eventually sign them to max contracts and having Anthony Davis, take up a good amount of that salary? And of course, going back to the age, the injury history, probably not. Um, I feel like the Wizards they are leaning towards building towards the youth and kind of just getting vets to help them along the way and teach them how to be a professional. You got Trey Young here, so I think Trey Young's max would be a little more affordable than Anthony Davis. So I would say maybe, if possible, like you said earlier, try to move him by the trade deadline just to see, build up his trade value, have him play, have him show what he can still do, and then send them off somewhere. Essentially, what the Wizards have been kind of doing the last few seasons when they get a veteran, they get a star, and then they let them play, let them do their thing, send them off somewhere to possibly compete. Basically, what they did with CJ McCollum this year, let him play, send to Atlanta, Atlanta made the playoffs. So, yeah, I think that would be the best scenario for Anthony Davis, at least for both sides. Actually, I think that would be the best scenario.
Yeah, it definitely has the vibe that, Trey Young is going to get some kind of like 2 to 3 year deal. Um, you know,
Because it seems like he wants to be here too.
yeah,
That's
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Thing is Trey was interested in the Wizards before the trade happened. Um, AD wasn't.
yeah,
So that's AD's trade was a complete shock. Whereas Trey, we knew the Hawks were going to trade him. The Wizards were one of the only real suitors. And then Trey's team kind of recontrolled the narrative. Like, all right, we're interested in the Wizards. Even though which just wasn't a lot of teams that were gonna take on his salary. Uh, but Trey kind of is making it work. Like he's being really enthusiastic about the Wizards' young core and everything. And one my favorite quote that he's dropped so far is that uh, I think the city can revive me as much as I can revive it. You know, I think that's fire.
yeah, that was fine.
I think that really just encapsulates the whole thing. Like, Trey hasn't won a playoff series since 2021. You know, he's still a great player, but he's got to prove that he can win again. And that wasn't, in terms of the Hawks, it kind of ran its course. But with the Wiz, next season they could definitely make the first round at least, and then maybe the year after that you could start getting to the second, third round. So um, and Trey's still only like what 27, so he's got a little bit more time to wait.
Yeah,
AD, not as much. So you know, two very different situations. Trey Young, we can be very, very confident that he's going to resign this offseason. Whereas AD, I agree with you. I do feel like it's more of like a CJ McCollum situation. It's just like a higher profile version,
yeah,
you know. Uh, because like once you add Trey Young to the extension in and Bilal and then Sar and Key next year, possibly, you know, you do wonder how much room there is for AD financially, you know. Um, but if it just works so well, right? You get AJ or Derek Peterson. It works so well, and then it's like, oh, maybe we do want to like just find a way to do it,
yeah.
like so.
I feel like the thing
Yeah,
is with the Wizards, they can go in a lot of different directions.
right.
Like they have multiple options of what they can do. So that's the good thing about it. They can decide like, all right, we're gonna still, still go young. We'll just send Anthony Davis somewhere, get some more pieces, or maybe get one star that's like a lower tier but can fit well on our roster. Or they can just be like, all right, we got the draft pick. We just gonna build around that, see where we go with that. And and like we said, Trey Young wants to be here. So that is like a foundational piece that they have that we know he wants to be here. We're going to sign him to a longer term deal. So we have that solidified point guard right there to lead our young guys. So it's a lot of ways that they can go. So it's another good problem that the Wizards organization has.
Overall, though, what do you think about the draft in terms of like, I guess if they get one, who's your pick, and then, um, but also, what do you think is the most likely to happen? Like, what's your guess?
It's confusing because this is a deep draft. This is a very top heavy draft, I would say. Um, but me, if I was to guess, like if I was the GM, I would go with probably Cam Boozer only because we're not sure about the Anthony Davis situation. So to have him as, kind of like an insurance blanket, I don't want to make it seem like he's like um second fiddle or anything like that, but just to have that solidified post presence alongside Sar, if we're not going to keep Anthony Davis, then that's the person you go with. Now, if they were to keep Anthony Davis, like they have Darren Peterson or they have AJ DeBonta. DeBonta to me is the clear number one pick, but he is a wing. The Wizards are very wing heavy. So going back to what we talked about earlier, you're going to have to get rid of some of these wings, specifically the wings, to make way for DeBonta. Guards, they don't have too many guards, like shooting guards at least. Um, I would say the only true shooting guard on the roster is Trey Johnson. And we've seen what Trey Johnson can do with this team. So we have to keep him. Um, Even if it's like a starting role or a six-man role, whatever the case may be, with his shooting ability, you need that in today's league. So it all to see like that's the thing. It all depends on what Anthony Davis decides to do. So if Anthony Davis wants to leave, go for Cam Boozer. If he decides to stay, I would say go for Devonta. Because Devonta's able because Keyshawn played a lot of guard this year as well. So you can throw Keyshawn at the two and throw Devonta at the three if you decide to start them together.
Right. Yeah, I think if they get AJ or DP, I think it's perfect fit. If they get like Boozer or Wilson, it's just gonna be like it'll be like the Mystics where like they probably come off the bench at first, uh, just because Sar and AD are already there.
Yeah.
But long term, I think they'll all be good either way. I think AJ's probably the guy at number one because I love Darren, but like the injury baggage might push him to two.
Yeah.
you know, I would say, Boozer is my three. A lot of people say Caleb Wilson like will be like higher. He's kind of raised his stock, but I just think that like Boozer's offensive upside is like immense. He's so smart. He's kind of like Jokic,
Yeah.
like in my opinion. Like uh even though he's like 6'9", but he just has that kind of like streak about him. Like he can pass so well. He's just really clean offensively. Um I think, like, in my opinion, the Wizards will be good as long as they get top four. If you get five, it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. So you got the worst pick you could get 2 years in a row, you know? But this draft is so good that if they get top four, I just feel like it's solid. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. Anything in the top four is decent. Um, they got the best odds of getting a top four pick. It is right.
Yeah, yeah. They got a 52.1% chance at top four. So,
Yeah. So anywhere if you fall on those lines, then definitely. Fall out of that. Mm, you still gonna get a decent player. You still gonna get a really good player, but I know everybody's banking on top four picks. But definitely the number one pick. That's what everybody wants. So
right.
I still think that they have a very good chance.
I don't want to say top four bust because you can still get some dudes at five. You got like Kingston Fleming, Darius Haycuff, right? But I think top four, the fan base is going to be pretty excited, just because like you at least didn't like go down to the lowest spot again. Like they went from 2 to 6 last year. That was just brutal. Still got Trey Johnson, really, really, really great shooter. But uh, like the fact like they could have got like Dylan Harper or VJ. Like VJ showing out with the Sixers already in the playoffs. Dylan Harper's in the second round with the Spurs too. He had a great game in the first round. So that that's tough. You know what I mean? Like to know that like if you're a Wizards fan, like those guys could have been Wizards, but hey, this year you got another shot. So it's just kind of like it's like Will Dalton said, uh, priority is to get lucky. On May 10th. But last question, what's kind of your guess for the Wizards' outlook next season? Do you think they go out in the play-in? Do they make the first round? Do they even win a playoff series? What do you think?
Um, I would think if everything falls right, first round. I think they could get to the first round. I think they could get a top 6 seed when healthy. Um, and a lot of people don't probably believe that outside of the Wizards fan base because they're from looking from the outside looking in because they don't see what we all see. The team was intentionally was intentionally giving all the players time to develop and show what they can do. So when they actually decide, all right, now we're going to try to win. Now we're going to try to, solidify our team, our roster, winning habits. Because honestly, the Wizards beat some really good teams. The Wizards beat Detroit this year. So I don't know if people forget, but like people were surprised, and a lot of us, of course, were surprised. But we was like, yeah, like this team is that good that potentially, when they're all clicking, they're really that good, and they have not shown their full health yet. So that's the thing. Like Sar missed a lot of time, Keyshawn missed a lot of time. Trey Young played 5 games, Anthony Davis didn't play. Bilal, this is actually the most games I think he's played for an entire season. We know Bub is, 82, 82 for his first 2 seasons. So, yeah, I feel like everybody's clicking, everybody's healthy. I feel like they're definitely going to make a first round series.
Yeah, no, I agree. I expect them to make the first round. Anything other than that, I don't think they'll win a series yet. But I think that first round is really a feasible goal, and that's a big step for them. I mean, after being terrible for a while. So, but Jared, thank you so much for talking about two different teams on this Sunday afternoon with me. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on X, Threads, Instagram on JL underscore ON underscore hoops, HOOPS. You can find me on all those platforms. I'm also on YouTube, Jarrett Spence, and on Substack.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, it's about to be a really fun season with the W, like we just said, but also Wizards will get their pick in a few days. So a lot going on. Very exciting time. I think PC Hoops is on the rise. So,
Yeah,
uh,
DC
you
Hoops
know,
is gonna have a crazy year.
yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you so much again, and until next time, bro.
Thanks for having me on, brother.